Hey there and welcome back to Northwest Craftsman. Today we're going to be talking about stain and pre-stain. Stains are just one of the ways that you can finish up your projects, and that's how I'm going to be finishing up the floating shelf that I'm doing. And one of the things that I was reading online is when you're using a soft wood like pine, which is what I'm using, doing pre-stain is something, or wood conditioner is something that's really important because it allows the stain to go on evenly. Now, given that I'm going to be staining the floating shelf black, I don't know how much of a difference it's going to make, but I decided to test on a few of the little samples that I have, some of the scrap that I have while I'm waiting for the shelf to finish gluing up and curing. Outside of the pre-stain, one of the things that I wanted to experiment with was whether or not planing it, leaving it raw, or using sandpaper on it had any sort of change in the difference. And so I'll do both prepped wood and non-prepped wood with each one of those three different finishes to it. So one of the other things that I'm doing is I've got a plastic bag over the top of my workbench. Nothing crazy, nothing expansive, but I would like to try and prevent miscellaneous stains and other things from getting on my workbench over a period of time. So I've got that guy to protect the workbench, and then I'll go ahead and start getting these guys prepped. So while I was doing my research, one of the things that I found is that for pre-stain in particular, a foam brush is okay, and I actually saw that pretty commonly online. And for this particular build, I'm just going to be going straight out of the can. Normally that's a pretty bad practice because you can get debris on the inside of your can, and so then it contaminates the rest of your projects. But because I've got a very small sample that I'm working with and the wood is clean, I'm going to go ahead and just dip this guy straight into the pre-stain and see how well it turns out. Okay, goodness gracious. So one of the other things that I underestimated is as soon as I popped this guy open, I realized that it needed to be mixed, and that's a part of the instructions as well. And I don't have any popsicle sticks around the house, and so I finally found these shish kebab sticks, which are going to work just fine for now, but highly recommended that you probably get a box of popsicle sticks, and I'm going to be getting that because there's going to be more than just this mix that we're going to need to mix up on the future of our projects. So the directions say to let this sit for anywhere between 2 to 5 minutes and then wipe off the excess while it's still wet. They made sure to mention not to wipe it off once it's dried and not to let it get to the point that it's dried. And so I'm putting this on nice and heavy so that we can get some good penetration of it. Okay, I think that's it. Okay, it's been about 3 minutes, and when I look at these in the sun, I can see it's starting to dry up, so I'm going to go ahead and wipe off the excess on here. Get these guys nice and clean. Now what I'm using, you're supposed to use a lint-free cloth, and so what I'm using is an old t-shirt, which after all the washing we've done on it, means that it's pretty darn lint-free. But another good investment for the shop is probably to get an actual stack of lint-free cloths that you can use. Alrighty, now we need to let these guys sit for about 20 to 30 minutes so that we can let it finish. It says that if there's any raised grain, which if I just rub my finger across here, I can feel the grain has been raised a little bit even after sanding it and planing it. So they said if there's any raised grain on here after 20 to 30 minutes, go ahead and lightly sand it with 220 grit sandpaper, and then it's ready to go ahead and stain once you clean it off. Okay, now that we've given it about 20 to 30 minutes to let the pre-stain work its magic, we're going to go ahead and add the other ones into the mix and go ahead and stain them. Wow, that stuff looks deadly. Well, I'm not sure we're going to be able to see the difference between the pre-stain and the no pre-stain because this stuff is black as sin and covered like crazy. So we'll see how it looks in about an hour when it dries out, and we'll come back and revisit. Alrighty, so I let these sit for quite a while, and one of the important lessons that I learned is don't sand in the same area that your finishes are drying, because you can see I got a whole bunch of little tiny specks of sawdust inside of these. Some of them wipe off, some of them don't. This nice fingerprint is from where I was trying to determine whether or not it was tacky, not realizing that I also had a whole bunch of sawdust in my fingerprints. But for the experiment that we had where we were trying to do prepped pre-stain versus no pre-stain, frankly, on something that is this dark, I think I have learned that it really honestly doesn't matter. I don't know if you guys can see a difference in these, but I honestly can't. I think the pre-stain would be better if you've got a lighter stain that you're more concerned about. I do notice a difference, however. So this guy was planed, this guy was raw, this guy was sanded with 220. And on those, I can see a small difference between the two. And in fact, it's kind of interesting on the sanding, you still get some of these striations where it looks like it bled a little bit differently into the wood. But for the most part, I don't really notice that big of a difference. And in fact, the finish didn't really come out all that great just on a single coat. I would want to go through with more than one coat on these guys. But as I said earlier, frankly, I think the lesson I learned is pre-stain is not going to matter on something as dark as this. At some point in the future, I'll go ahead and post another video that has pre-stain used with a variety of other stains so that you can determine what the difference is. But for now, if you're going to go with something that's this dark, essentially just painting the wood black, I think you're probably safe not to use pre-stain. Okay guys, thanks for joining me today on Northwest Craftsman. If you like what you're seeing, please like, comment, and subscribe. We've got a ton of other videos that are coming up. We've also got a ton of other things that we've already posted. If you want to see how I built the workbench that I'm working on, I've got videos for that. I've got my floating shelf that I'm making, and there's a ton of other stuff that's coming on the way. So like, comment, and subscribe if you'd like to support the channel. All of those things help us, and it helps me to bring more content to you. And if you'd like to see other things on the channel, please let me know. Let me know in the comments. Let me know if there's a certain project that you'd like to see, and I'll see what I can't do about it. Okay, thanks. Have a great one, you guys.